Okay, yeah. Tell us who you are and then what's your...
My name is Lianne Hanaway, and I'm volunteer co-chair of ELN, Emerging Leaders Network Studio 2012. The studio is dedicated to the single theme of mobility and transportation. And my background isn't really a subject matter expert in transportation. I'm actually a partner at KPMG, an accounting firm in all over the world, but principally in the GTA location is where I work. And I've been always passionate about transportation, and the work that I do there doesn't lend itself, but I know that getting to and from work every day, as well as to the communities that I go to, plays a really important role in my quality of life and hopefully the quality of life of others around me. So that's a little bit about my background.
Mm-hmm. After you joined the ELN, what's your return? How do you feel about these organizations?
Well, what's great about the ELN, since joining, I actually, before I even joined, I wanted to join an organization that wasn't just about talking about issues, but also about taking action on those issues. And I'm so thankful to Inka Barry, who's a friend of mine who is an ELN member, who introduced me to ELN and the co-chairs to talk about joining the organization, because that's essentially what they do. They take action on issues that are pressing our community. And it's so great to have over 600 of us, as well as 200 of us that are here today to talk about issues that are facing our region and to really take action on them. So I'm really passionate about our city and our city region, and so thankful that there's other people who share that passion and we can network and get together and take action.
And you say that ELN's main focus on mobility and transportation, and you have 600 people within this group. How often do you meet? What's the communication?
Well, we do have 600 members in the ELN group, and 200 of them are here today to talk about mobility and transportation. So it is a subset of the group. And we're here for the morning part of the day to get the background information, to get an understanding and build a framework for what we'll do in the later half of the day is discuss the issues in more detail as they pertain to each one of us, and see what action-orientated projects that we can derive from that discussion and derive from that collaboration and take leadership on it into the future. So those 200 members here today will probably break into groups later on in the day, bring forward projects towards the advisory panel, and then in the next 18 months, incubate that idea into actual actions and actual projects that will later lead to different projects that will address an issue at hand. For example, a project that came out of 3 studios ago is Toronto Homecoming, which looked at the issue of the brain drain and how come we have a lot of talented people who leave Canada and decide to go work elsewhere. How can we bring them back to Canada? And that issue was looked at a studio 3 years ago, and from that issue came Toronto Homecoming, which is a project that brings expatriates back to Canada and matches them with organizations that are very passionate of tapping into that talent pool. And so that's an annual conference that's put on by Toronto Homecoming, and it was actually incubated at a prior ELN studio.
Mm-hmm. What about the 32 project? Is that also the byproduct of the ELN?
The Your 32 project is actually an initiative of Civicaction, and ELN, the Emerging Leaders Network, is an initiative of Civicaction. And so we're doing our part in promoting that campaign. So it basically asks the questions, if you had 32 minutes extra a day, what would you do with those extra 32 minutes? And that 32 minutes basically represents what we each would save if we had better transportation in our city. So as part of the ELN, it's actually one of the ELN studio. It is one of the themes that we're addressing here today. Like, how do we engage more people into that conversation? How do we build grassroots, understanding as well as support? Asking people what they would do with 32 extra minutes. I myself said that I would spend more time cooking and, getting more time to actually cook a home-cooked meal every day. And, then turning in phase 2, the conversation would be, what would you do for those 32 minutes? What would you be willing to give up in order to get those extra 32 minutes a day?
So who are those 600 people in the ELN?
Those 600 people in the ELN represent a cross-section of business, a cross-section of industry, not-for-profits, people who work in government, not-for-profit organizations, as well as in the corporate sector, a broad gamut. They represent people from ages of 25 to 45, although that's not a strict criteria, but they're people who are at mid-level in their careers and really want to take onus of being a part of a larger Toronto region and address civic action on things that are happening in our greater Toronto region.
And do you really think that 600 people, the ELN, could change the politicians' mind, could change the infrastructure, could change a better life?
I've been asked that question before, and I think it's really powerful what people who are really passionate about things can do. I mean, we've demonstrated it before with our prior projects, and I really think that it's really people who come together at a grassroots level who are really able to affect change, and we shouldn't ignore that voice. Even in this digital social media society, I'm really thinking that the future is a hashtag to really create a movement and really get people moving towards achieving better civic society and specifically fairer and stronger transportation system for all of us here in Toronto.
Okay, so when we look at the GTA Hamilton area, what's the real problem about the transportation?
We just heard from Jennifer Keesmaat, who is the newly appointed city planner for Toronto, and one of the things that she said was, we don't have choice. If we had more choices in the GTAH, we could, the GTHA, we could basically select to walk to work or to walk to the bank or walk to all those things that we do every day. But now we don't really have that choice. A lot of in the region's populations as well as in downtown, we have to get in our car. That really we're self-selecting a car instead of other modes of transportation. So I'm thinking that is one of the key issues that is facing the GTHA when it comes to transportation, is we need more choice.
It means more choices, more mass transit.
Yes, more modes of transportation, not just to move people around. And what she was saying is, it's not necessarily that most trips people make is not to move across the region. It's a lot of our transportation is to walk to school, walk to work, or the distance from school to work, the distance from more shorter modes of transport. If we had an ecosystem or a walking habitat, if we created that habitat, what a difference it would make for our transportation system.
So how long have you been with ELN, and what's your feeling about that?
So I've been with the Emerging Leaders Network for a little over 7 months, so not too long, but I really wanted to take part in this transportation initiative because it is something that is really passionate to me. I lived abroad for 2 years in Paris, France, and they have a very good transportation system. And I actually, not only did I take the metro, I had a card that took me like a Presto kind of card, but their equivalent was a metro card that took me all around the region. I got to see different, cultural venues, but also I walked a lot and I biked a lot. And having that access to the city and what it has to offer, I think it really lends itself to being a better quality of life. And I just thought, why can't we have this in Toronto? And with that, and knowing that the ELN wanted to spearhead this topic as a part of its ELN Studio 2012, that's what really brought me on board. So I went from 0 to 100 in a matter of 6 months being a part of the ELN.
So you believe that Toronto is really behind other major cities in the world in terms of transportation?
I think it is. I think it is an issue that we need to really put some concentrated effort on. And like I said, it lends itself to a huge quality of life in our community. And we need to just kind of stop the talk and really get action on this issue. And it would just help to serve the greater population as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.